Whether you're a seasoned vet of the payments industry or a brand new rookie who just heard the term dual pricing for the first time, you're in the right place. This is the only podcast that shares the strategies and stories behind selling merchant services, all from the perspective of those on the front lines. Welcome to AgentFirst. All right, welcome back to AgentFirst. I'm Jon, he's Justin.
Welcome.
One of these days we'll switch sides. Most people listen, so there's no difference.
Yeah.
But for the people that do watch, it'll really mess them up.
I like my chair. I like my chair, Jon.
Yeah, Justin's the one with hair. I'm the other one. It's funny. We occasionally will get questions about how scripted is this? How much do we talk about it? And you're starting to chuckle because I haven't even told you what the topic is.
Zero ideas.
We just pressed record, and I'm going to tell you what the topic is. So here's kind of what I was thinking, right? And this is one that I know you've got some personal stories. So I am cheating a little bit because it's one that we've talked about. Let's say we've got an agent that has been selling for a little while.
Yeah.
Has started to see some success. We've talked already in episode about kind of using referrals, and there are some tools to start to build when you start to see some success. But I know that there are agents who will kind of pick a vertical or pick a merchant type or size.
Right.
And really kind of hone in on that.
Right.
And I also know that there are agents who will do almost the traveling salesman, where they'll kind of pick a region or a community or a town and just try and sell everybody in there. And so what I'd love for you to do is, and again, I think we've talked about there's no one way to succeed in this industry. Maybe talk about the pros and cons of each of those and share. You can use names if you want to, or we can keep the names to protect the innocent. But I just think it would be really interesting to, as we think about this, all right, as you're starting to kind of get into that, I really want to find a groove that I can start to succeed in. And maybe there's other grooves that aren't even in those too. Sure. But talk about what some of those have been and what worked for yourself or what you've seen work for other people.
So we're going to make this is the groovy episode.
This is the groovy episode, yes.
Grooves.
Yeah.
So I think it's starting back from day one for people, agents, salespeople, whatever title you use for yourself, entering this industry is that, the first 6 to 9 months, I always tell everybody expect the first year, but it's usually less than this. You're probably going to be doing a lot of cold calling. You're probably going to be doing a lot of cold outreach, and I think, you have to really just assign yourself to that or resign yourself to that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm sure I've got a network. Sure, I've got some people that are going to give me a try. But there's a lot of people that are going to be like, I'm not going to give you a try because you're brand new also. There's so many of those that are the other side, right? So you got that first, 6 months to a year where you're going to be doing that. Then after that, it should start becoming easier if you've been building it the right way. And that's really where these grooves we're going to talk about come into play. And I love this topic because it is what you can go really into in and out of one groove and in other ones kind of have those focuses. You can be a little bit of all of them, right? But I think one of the ones that I feel is the most successful I've seen out there is really becoming a known expert in your community, becoming that guy, that person, that salesperson in your area, in your neighborhood, in your community, and really kind of becoming known as, hey, you're the merchant services person there. That's what you do. Yeah. And that can be done lots of different ways. So I did a lot with Chamber of Commerce's. I know some other people do that as well. Okay. Back in my day, we didn't have, Facebook groups and stuff, and now Facebook groups are huge, right? I know a person right now who is literally all of their businesses coming from 2 Facebook community groups they belong to.
There you go.
And all they're doing is just living off the referrals in those Facebook community groups. They're active on it. They're on Facebook all the time. They're active in their community. They're constantly trying to support other businesses in their community as well. Yeah. So it feels genuine for them. It feels real. It feels like I want to support my community. At the same time, they're getting constant referrals from other business owners in their community as well. And that's, that started small and little by little grew. And now you get somebody who's like, oh, I'm, new business owner, and people are on Facebook referring him. And so I think that's a great way to go down that path. Now, the disadvantage to it is you're somewhat limited by the restrictions of that area. Are you going to get referrals outside that area? Sure, of course you're going to. But you're really kind of, saying I'm the, this neighborhood person, and as long as the neighborhood's large enough, that really can serve you well, for sure.
Yeah.
And you can get a really nice mix of business types. You can get, restaurants and retail, the person who's opened up the website, the person who's opened up some home-based business. Even somebody might be developing an app, and you can do the payment processing for that and kind of work through those processes. I really think that's a great way to go about it. I don't see a lot of downsides out on that methodology, for sure.
Okay.
Another one that's very, very popular, I think extremely effective, and I coach this a lot to people, is that, take something that you're passionate about and run with it. Take something that, Ira in a previous episode talked about, this has been a big part of his success, was really focusing on an industry that he was passionate about and loved. That he, for him, it was the motorsports industry. He could walk into places that sell motorcycles or side-by-sides or, off-road vehicles and things like that. And because he lived that life and he loved those hobbies, he considered just having a conversation with somebody. Sure. And even if he didn't sell that person, there was a genuine connection with that person. He had a fun conversation talking with them, and became kind of known for a while as like the motorsports merchant guy, as he had.
Right.
And there's other people that are doing a very similar thing. And it's what I tell people when you kind of struggle a little bit, when you need that, hey, let me reset.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it. So do is your kid in dance? Go talk to some dance studio owners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you really into skateboarding? Go talk to a bunch of skate shops. I mean, hell, if you're really into cooking and restaurants, you're a big foodie, go talk, because they're gonna feel your passion for that energy, and you're gonna be able to talk from a genuine way that many other people can't. So for me, I just went and talked to a bunch of bacon shops. I was butcher shops, places that sold bacon.
Right.
But if you're into cars, there's so many places out there to sell cars and do car repairs, and there's just so much out there that you can do that doesn't feel like it's forced. It feels like you're having because it is truly, you're having a genuine conversation with genuine people about something you care about, and at the end of the day, you end up doing business together. It's more of a kind of a natural evolution of that conversation, not a forced, hey, I'm trying to sell you.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of these I can talk about, but I think the third one to me that is, I think the most effective. There's always the shotgun approach, right? There's always the approach of like, I'm just going to talk to anybody and everybody, and there's a lot of people out there that do that for sure. It is really then starting to, I think the third one that is really effective is really kind of just creating this networking approach in your area. If you're not somebody who's comfortable with social media, you're not on social media, you're not the person who's going to be out there driving referrals through social media, but you're more of an extrovert, the typical salesperson that just wants to connect with everybody, is just really, diving deep into your area and becoming that networking person.
Okay.
And you see that a lot. That was a lot of how I sold personally. I was very active in networking groups, chamber of commerces, things like that. I was going to the business before breakfast things and the ribbon cuttings and meeting a lot of people that way. And it takes time. No one's going to just refer you right away, and that's the part people have to remember. You're not going to start going and get a result 2 days later.
Right.
It takes time. You got to put in the hard yards, because remember, you're the 84th merchant services guy that's been in that group over the last 5 years, right? Yeah. So you've got to stick through it and show that you have staying power, and you're there, and you're not just going to be gone like everybody else is, and you're there to take care of people, and they're supporting that community, you're there supporting that networking group. That can be a great way to do it as well. And so, I could talk about these all day long, but I think the networking one is it's a little bit of a dying one. I think there are people that are not doing it. I don't hear as many people doing that side of it as much, and I think it's just because of social media makes it a little easier to do networking in that regard. Yeah. But some people just aren't that comfortable with being on social media all the time or are on there all the time.
Yeah.
And I think the networking way can be great. I mean, there's B&I groups out there, there's Chamber of Commerce groups out there, there's things that are not B&I, just normal networking, groups that don't have a title to them necessarily. Even things you can create yourself.
Yeah.
I think I've talked about this prior, that one of my best referral sources literally came from a small little networking group that 5 of us made, that we were all salespeople selling into B2B, and we would sit down on a regular basis and we would say, hey, who are you trying to get in front of? And I'd be like, I'm trying to get in front of XYZ, and they're like, oh, I do his taxes, I know him already, so there was a nice way to just kind of have that little referral source. I mean, if you're in a small to medium-sized town, you're going to find that 5 active salespeople probably know, one of them knows the person that you're looking to get in front of. So kind of have that small little group. A lot of people call them a mastermind group.
Yeah.
Have that small group that really can help each other out is a great resource also.
That's great. So, obviously if you're an agent listening and you're in maybe a larger metropolitan area, you can feel like, there's enough merchants to go around, right? There's enough businesses and everything. But what if you're not in Chicago, you're in Sheboygan instead, right? Or somewhere else. Is there value in a strategy that says, hey, I'm going to go to the little town that's 5 miles west of me for a week, right? And hit everybody, and then I'm going to go 5 miles south of me for a week and hit everybody. Have you seen people succeed with kind of that strategy?
I've seen a lot of people succeed, and that's a great one. Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the most successful people I know in this industry sells that exact way. Lives in a larger town, but doesn't feel like he connects with some of the larger merchants.
Sure.
I think he absolutely does, but it's just in his head that he doesn't, right? And so he literally goes and he has it's almost like a milk route, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
It's a route he has pre-planned out that he does, and he goes into a small community, and he just tries to connect with people. And he even sometimes he said, if I'm struggling, I'll give out gift cards. Like, hey, who do you know? I'll give you $25. You can introduce me to somebody, little Visa gift card, things like that. And he feels more comfortable there. I mean, I'll never forget him telling me this story of, you're in a large city and you're a salesman and you walk into somewhere, they say, I'm not interested because you're the 100th guy that walked in today. You go to a small town and they're like, hey, Ma, put on the coffee. We got somebody to chat with. Like they're more receptive, So what he found a lot of success in, and a lot of people have, and I think it's a great discussion topic, is really go into those small towns, and because not very many people are going after those small towns, go in there, become that trusted source. Don't be the person who shows up once and disappears, because you're that's not going to work. But if you're regularly going back, you become known as that person. Even if you don't live there, they trust you. They know you're not going anywhere, and those small communities are very tight knit, right? Yeah. So the guy that owns the auto repair shop is telling the person that has the pizza shop, like, oh yeah, Brett's for real. You should talk to him, right? Yeah. And so, but yeah, the guy I know, I mean, literally, he would just, he would stay in these small little towns. He would connect with people. He would get to know people, and just referral after referral after referral. And it was kind of this little set, route he would go, and it's an amazing way to do it. I mean, the guy lives in a large city, and I bet he's sold less than 10% of his deals in the city he lives in. He just goes on these routes and loves it.
Well, and I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, and that's kind of, what I thought is that, especially because of the, having so many merchants in these large cities, there can be competition with folks that are selling similar services for other companies. But as soon as you get just a little bit out past the suburbs, it's a lot of people that they're looking, they're signing up for Square online because that's basically what they can find, right?
Yeah, they don't know. There's no one there to guide them through that process, really. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. If you don't know, you're just going to go online and sign up for the simplest thing you've seen on TV and you've seen it other places. You're like, oh, okay, this is fine. But when you have somebody there to guide you through that, you have that salesperson there or that advisor there to walk you through your different options. Yeah, maybe Square is a good option for you, but usually it's not. So let's help find and connect you with that right solution. But they don't know who to call, right? Yeah. They don't know. They call their local bank usually, and their local bank may or may not point in the right direction. They may not have anything to do with merchant services. Yeah. I mean, one of my great referral sources kind of ties into this a little bit, was a rural bank. It was a rural bank that they didn't do merchant services, but they were known, kind of that old community feel of, if you had to do anything with money, you went to the bank. You went to talk to your banker, right? And these bankers, we would regularly get nice referrals from them. You guy opened up a new restaurant, person opened up a new auto shop, person opened up, a new bakery, whatever it might be. We were constantly getting really solid, nice referrals from them. Not huge amounts, but they were always solid, ready to go. And there were people from that community that had gone to that bank and just said, what do I do? And those can be great sources for people, for sure. Yeah.
And it's funny, you brought up in an earlier answer, I think one of the ways this has changed since we started in merchant services, mumble years ago, is the internet, right?
Yeah.
Because I think, even when we talked to Ira, he wasn't just doing motorsports and adventure sports here in where he lives.
Right.
He was doing it all over the country,
right?
Because I think if you find that niche where again, where your passion and your profession kind of overlap, right? And so now you're an authentic part of that community.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be in your zip code, right? It can be anywhere.
Right.
And I think that's one that maybe people don't necessarily think of that, is that, hey, I sold all 4 in my state, but there's probably another 4 in the state next door, right? Or they know people, or again, there's online communities and things like that.
1,000%. I mean, I know somebody who is in martial arts. I mean, it feels like you're talking about a niche. Like you feel like a really small niche, but you start thinking about like how many martial arts studios are there in a decent sized town? There's quite a few. Yeah. And he dominates that, but then he's then connected in such a bigger way because he goes to tournaments, meets people, understands the industry very well, understands the software they're using, understands the lingo. You're no longer just a merchant services guy. You're somebody in their community, right?
For sure.
We talked to somebody at a show that had switched to only selling to grocery stores. That's all they do is grocery stores and butcher shops, right?
Yeah.
And they had hired people that came from that industry before that understand it. And he said, when you walk in and you're not just talking about, let me try to sell you merchant services or a new point of sale, but you can talk about the specific lingo that they use and they understand and the issues they face because those people have been in that same spot. That's huge. That's huge when you become part of that community. And it's not limited. We're no longer in the days where people feel like, I think when I started in this, there was being face-to-face was a huge advantage. I still think it is in many ways, but if there's a deeper connection because of social media, where I see you with your kids, I see you going on vacation, I see you doing all these things, you're a real human being that I already feel somewhat connected with. Now we take that to a business relationship. You're not a stranger to me, even though I've never met you in person, even though I've never shook your hand. You're not really the stranger that you would have been 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we've seen agents use social media even just from an authenticity standpoint,
yes.
right? Just so that people feel like they get to know you and get to know your family and things like that. And so again, when you walk in the door, you aren't just the next merchant services sales guy. You're hey, I saw you were skiing or whatever you were doing, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think if you're selling in this day and age, if you're not using social media as a huge part of your business, I think you're really missing out. And even if you're not using it to prospect, but if you're just using it to kind of put yourself out there and show that you're a real live human being living in that community, and connecting with other business owners and promoting those local businesses and promoting the people that are your target audience. If you're not doing, and I don't mean doing that in a schemed up way, but like a really authentic, like if you got to really actually care about people, you got to really actually care about the business in your community. If you do that and you start putting that stuff out there, you start connecting with people, again, none of this happens overnight, but little by little, you start building up a reputation of who you are. It's massive and can really just grow in big ways.
So I'll put you on the spot because I always do. I think we've talked about there's no one way to succeed,
Right.
but are there any grooves that you yourself or you've seen other people try and kind of create that maybe weren't as successful,
Right. I think that, and there are people that have success in this, but I
Okay.
argue how successful it is. Okay.
Okay.
And I think people overstate it is trying to sell over the phone.
Okay.
So I had a guy that, and I've had many people work for us in the past that came from this background, but one specific person I remember is this was back in the day when I was in Harlan, we were really tracking metrics really well, right? And you're tracking metrics of how many appointments are you setting, how many appointments are you running, how your success ratios, and he would crush it on the appointments. But then what we'd find is when we would go in, and he was just appointment setting over the phone.
Yeah.
And then when we go in face to face, the person had no idea who he was. It's almost like they had said, "Yeah, come on in at 5, it's whatever, I don't care."
Sure.
Just to get you off the phone,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
I know you're even gonna show up, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know who you are. I don't remember saying this.
Yeah.
And there was no connection from that first conversation. So even prospecting over the phone was tough, and his success ratios were way lower. He rarely was getting sales, even though he had tons of appointments. Even further is that trying to do complete sales over the phone.
Okay.
And old school merchant services, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of selling over the phone, getting people into leases, getting people into long-term contracts. They didn't know what they were signing up for half the time. But there are some companies out there now that do it over the phone and do it in respectful ways.
Yeah.
There's still plenty out there doing not irrespectful ways, but not
Sure, yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
not
irrespectful, but that's all right,
whatever.
that's the word for today.
bad
Yes.
ways. But there are companies out there that are doing it right, but that is hard. You're not creating any sort of relationship, and the next person that comes along and says, "Hey, I can save you 5 cents," where's the connection? Where's that relationship with you? This industry is all about, yes, I want to get somebody signed up, but if you're not retaining those customers, what are you really doing? You're just treading water. If I'm signing up 5 but I'm losing 5 every month, what's the point, right? So you've got to have, not a retention strategy, I wouldn't say, but you got to stay connected with your customers, make them feel like I care. I pick up the phone and call you. If you're working out of an office somewhere and all you're doing is just outbound calls, just trying to sign up new customers, you're going to struggle to have that relationship.
Sure.
You're going to struggle to retain them long term. And I don't see that ever turning into great success. It's very rare anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
One of these days, maybe I'll tell you the topic before we start recording, but.
I like this.
But this was good.
this.
This was groovy.
It's
right?
groovy.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing the stories. Again, it's one of those, I think there is no silver bullet in merchant services. And it's always good to remember that and hear some of the different ways that people can succeed.
We could talk for hours about all the different ways there is to be successful in this industry. And there's no right or wrong way, and as soon as we get done talking about it, there's 10 more somebody came up with today. So for sure.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.